Hello and welcome back to the podcast. We're thrilled to have you here with us today. This is the You Are Not Alone podcast where we talk about books, and especially those books that are getting all the love in the mainstream or out in media that we just didn't quite resonate with. So we are excited to kind of dive into that conversation today. We are the Book Podcasters. I am Rebecca Beardsall, and I have my friends Colleen Clemens and Athena Roth with me today. And we are going to kick off today talking about what we are currently reading. I'm going to pass it on to you, Colleen.
Well, this is a trick question because I just finished the two books I was reading. But I just finished Bear this morning by Julia Phillips that I already gave back to my friend, so I don't have it. And I, like a day or two ago, just finished this book, Lives Other Than My Own. So I feel like I should say what I'm probably going to start to read, which is I think I'm going to start reading the new Anna Quindlen novel. And then for my memoir on tap, I'm going to read How to Save Babylon, which I was so proud and I got out of the library because I'm trying to save money. And then my dog ate it. So I had to buy it anyway. So now I own it. So I guess the universe wanted me to own this book. So I think that's what I'm going to start. So it's a kind of a trick question because I'm actually literally not reading anything at this moment. So that's what's on deck for me.
On deck is just as good as what you're reading.
On deck is the best I can do, and I liked those. I liked both those books that I just finished. So
okay,
yeah, I just ordered the other one that you had recommended, that memoir.
You liked Bear? Is that what I heard you say?
No, the other one. Oh yeah,
I did.
Yeah, maybe it's another one someday. Yeah,
we are all
because I know we've all read that one now too.
Yeah, we're all connected.
Yeah, I loved it.
Athena, what are you currently reading?
I just remembered I finished something I really loved, but we're not talking about that, right? We're talking about what
we can talk about whatever we want.
No, it's okay. You triggered something, but you know what? I'll wait. We'll save that for another thing. So what I'm currently reading, I have an advanced reader's copy of The Serviceberry, which is the new Robin Wall Kimmerer. So I'm reading that.
Nice.
Oh, I have to send it to Colleen when I'm done with it. So I have that. I'm reading that.
Oh.
Let's see. I have a stack here. This is so good, and I'm almost done. I'm reading Held. Let's see, by Anne Michaels. It's so beautiful. Look at the bookmark, Rebecca.
Is it poetry?
Is that a Sasquatch
no?
Mark?
No, look at
me. Is that a Sasquatch?
No, it's a cat paw.
Oh, all right. A little cat paw. A little cat paw. Okay.
That's acceptable.
And then I'm also, because I read a lot of things at once because I'm weird.
Same.
And then I'm reading There Are Rivers in the Sky.
I love her. That's her new book. Right?
Yeah. And it's really beautiful.
Girl, I need to raid your library.
Yes, come over.
I have plenty of my own, but those are high on my list.
Oh, good. Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I also have to give a shout out to Humdrum Paper. Makes the cutest bookmarks. Like Rebecca, I almost just bought you that, but then I was like, ask her first. But like, there's cat paws. I'll talk, because there's people just listening too. There's little mushrooms, and they stick out the top. You see on the top, and then like there's banana peels. Like, you know what I mean?
They don't even sponsor us. We're just that excited.
No, love the bookmarks and
we just love bookmarks. We could do a whole episode on bookmarks, probably.
Yeah, we could. Okay, so that's what I'm reading right now.
Well, I'm currently reading, because I just finished a bunch of books too, so I'm like new into some of these, but both of these were recommendations from Athena, actually. So I just started Orbital.
Yeah, I keep seeing that on your Instagram.
Yeah, I'm loving it.
The cover is gorgeous.
Yeah. And speaking of bookmarks, I have a card in there that Colleen sent me. That's awesome.
Oh, Colleen.
That's often what I use so that my friends are with me when I'm reading.
Yes.
And then David Brooks' How to Know a Person.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. This is really good. I'm reading it as part of like a group of us at work are reading it together and going to have a discussion. So, yeah. So far enjoying
You should tell the quick, eerie story about this.
Yes. Yeah. So we're going to get into this, but we all read a book.
Oh yeah. We can talk about that later. Yeah. I forgot that we yes.
Okay.
The universe is doing crazy things.
Yes.
That's my teaser. The universe is doing crazy
coming later in the podcast.
Coming soon in this episode.
So I have been looking forward to this conversation for a while because, like, for me, sometimes having conversations is how I process what I'm thinking. And so I'm really excited about this. So we're doing something a little different today, in the sense that we are talking about the work of an author as a whole. So not just a book like we talked about before. And this one is kind of from we all seem to have a similar experience, and so we're just going to dive into that. But it is, the falling in love with an author and their work, and then falling out of love, essentially. So today we are talking about Barbara Kingsolver, and I would love for each of us to share how we first came into her work.
Oh gosh, I don't know
So
if I can remember.
if you want, I can go first if you want me to go first. Or if one of you wants to take it first.
I mean, I guess I can. Just how I came upon her.
Yeah.
I if I had to guess, I'm gonna guess that was my very good friend Laura, who is also an avid reader. I'm thinking she is probably the one that put Animal Dreams in my hand. Late 1900s. I love when people say that. I love when people say it in the 1900s. I'm going to guess that's what happened, but it's very, and as we talk more, you'll see why I said her, but I'm not sure how I found her.
All right. Athena, we at least know which book you kind of came into. The
same one.
Yeah, Animal Dreams is for sure the turtle stories.
Yeah, same one for me. And then I think it was my sister. No, because it was too. Maybe it's too.
We're too old for this question. That's like half a lifetime ago.
I know, Rebecca.
Sorry, I have the memory of an elephant.
Because Rebecca probably has the receipt from it.
I know.
Your little ephemera catalog where she finds.
I know.
Let's check.
I know. She remembers like the time.
Somehow she can be a not a hoarder at all, but also have every ephemera she's ever needed.
I know. I don't understand it. She's like, I was
she's gonna hold something up. I bet you money. She's gonna like hold something up from like the 1900s.
Yeah.
Here she goes. Look at her. Yeah, she is.
Well, we're waiting for Athena to finish her story. So
what? Oh.
No, either. She doesn't remember.
I don't remember.
But it was Animal Dreams. It was Animal Dreams.
And I loved it.
Okay.
I loved it, but that was like that. But that's the first one.
But I don't think Animal Dreams is the first one of her book.
Was it Bean Trees?
Bean Trees.
Okay, sorry, that was the one.
It was that one. Yeah,
that one. Sorry, Rebecca.
There's a lot of books in between now and then.
Well, let me hear my story of how I came to Barbara Kingsolver.
Here she goes.
She's gonna
know. She gonna know.
I was in Auckland, New Zealand. We worked really weird hours because we had an internet cafe, and so we were often up in the middle of the night. And I was watching some random American show, and they were talking about this author, Barbara Kingsolver. And I think they were in a band, if I remember correctly. I think there's a band of authors. Anyway.
Yes, she is in a band.
Yeah.
I do remember this now. I'm going to Google this because you are absolutely right. I completely, all right, go ahead.
And so I'm like, this band of authors, who are these? I mean, I knew most of them, but I didn't know Barbara Kingsolver. And so I went to the local bookstore the next day and bought Pigs in Heaven.
So they had it. That might be the first one I read. I don't know. Oh, that's a different cover too.
Well, it would be a different cover because it has like 5.99 pounds. Like it's the UK version, right? Because I bought it in New Zealand. And this is technically the third book, right? So Bean Trees, Animal Dreams, and Pigs in Heaven, I believe, is the order that it goes.
Okay.
If I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, because this came out after those. And so this
no idea.
What was that?
The Rock Bottom Remainders is the name of their band.
And who's all in it? Like, it's like Amy?
Stephen King.
Oh, yeah.
Dave Barry, Amy Tan, Barbara Kingsolver, Matt Groening. It's like a rotation of people.
Wild. I love it.
Honorary member Maya Angelou. Yes, I totally forgot that she was in a band. And that was, there's a picture of the band in 1992. And their performances have collectively raised $2 million for charity.
Wow.
Yeah, it's cool. Anyway,
That's
I
cool.
completely forgot about that. So that's so
I
funny.
know.
3 point.
Yeah, so this one, so Pigs in Heaven came out in 1993.
Oh my God.
Um,
That's going to be a running thing for this whole podcast when I'm like, oh my God.
I didn't come to it till probably like 98, 97,
Yeah,
98.
that's I'm thinking I'm around there as well.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so I didn't realize that they kind of the story continued, right? These, as Colleen calls them, the turtle books, right?
Yeah.
And I just fell in love with this, and then I went back and got Animal Dreams. This is also a UK version, just showing the difference if you have a US version.
I couldn't find I found some others, but I can't find any of them. I'm going to guess
I
I loaned
know.
them to somebody and they never made their way back to me because I would not have gotten rid of my turtle books, as I call them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so
I
I
know.
think
I
the other
love
thing
them.
that I wanted to kind of talk about and was that, I have clearly followed Barbara Kingsolver throughout her multiple
Yeah,
books. I also have a few of her nonfiction that aren't here because I didn't
Yep.
as I was doing this. So for those who are listening, I just lifted up a huge stack of books of mostly all hardcover
Yeah.
of Barbara Kingsolver, and Demon Copperhead was also part of that, but not anymore. Which
So
takes us
are we
to the next phase.
is this where we talk about the breaking up or is there an arc in there somewhere for us?
Well, I think that'd be interesting to hear from each of you of like, so you can't remember which one, Bean Trees, Animal Dream, or Pigs in Heaven, but basically it was a turtle book that you started with and loved. And then what happened in your journey with Barbara Kingsolver?
Athena, you want to take that one first?
Sure. Okay. So yeah, same with me. I read those three and I love them. I think they're beautiful. I won't go into detail about that right now, but I'll tell you the journey. And then I read um the summer one. What's it called? I'm sorry, I just blanked.
Prodigal Summer. You didn't read Poison
Yes.
Bible?
Oh, sorry, you're right. Poison Wind Bible.
I
That's
just
And
remembered
then
that one in my list as well.
yes,
Yeah.
that was
thank
next.
you. And then Prodigal Summer. And
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
like both of those.
Yep.
And then was it the Lacuna?
Lacuna. I think Lacuna is next.
Yeah, and I think that's where I had trouble finishing. I didn't get through that. And then that's where I kind of was like, oh, I had trouble there. It kind of stopped there, where I found that when I was going to read her stuff, where usually I would start it and I would get so drawn in and it would be like immediate, like I was feeling like it was just a struggle to keep with it and to get, to feel connected to it. But it's weird. That's where it kind of began for me to be a struggle, and I don't know why. And during that time, I think there was a memoir of hers though I enjoyed.
Small
Um,
Wonders.
yeah, I liked that. So I
Is
don't
that
know
the one
what's
you're
going
thinking
on.
about? The memoir?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on.
Oh
I don't know
no.
why.
No, I'm sorry. Maybe it was the Animal Vegetable Miracle.
That's it. Oh, wait a
Her
second, wait a second.
memoir, and then
It
Small
was,
Wonders was
Oh
the
yeah, Small
essay
Wonders came
collection.
out
yes, it
later.
was the one about her family, and yes, okay.
Yeah,
So
Animal
that
Vegetable Miracle.
yes, I love that. Isn't that title beautiful too? I love that
Gorgeous.
one. So I love that was great. So I don't know. Something happened there. There was a moment, and I'll let you both go now too, and then we can discuss maybe why. But like for me, that was the point. But I loved them all before. I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
should say I was an obsessive fan of Barbara Kingsolver. My friend Laura that I just mentioned, we went down and saw her speak at the Philly
Oh,
Free Library. And it was for Animal Vegetable Miracle. And I remember she showed a video of turkeys having sex because that's such a rarity because
yeah,
they do like in a natural setting. It's like, so I remember this is interesting.
yeah,
And I remember that was the only time I think I've ever seen Laura nervous, like to go up to get your book signed and try to express to this person how much we like
yeah.
loved her work, like deeply, deeply
Ugh.
loved the essays. The two books I have that I dug out are actually essay collections. So I come into this as somebody who just admired her work and listen, and still admires her career. I do not want anybody to think that I'm like putting down Barbara Kingsolver. We're talking about like our experiences as readers.
Yeah,
So I had a very similar trajectory. Poisonwood Bible, I think I was in 2 book clubs that read that book. Now, the post-colonial scholar in me 20 years later doesn't love that book that much. But then that me really did like that book.
Yeah.
I liked Prodigal Summer. I still remember so much of that book. Small Wonders.
Yeah.
And Lacuna. So same thing. I was in a book club. They had picked Lacuna, very passionately picked it. I had it in hardcover, again, hardcover commitment. Couldn't get into it. The only reason I finished that book, I have such a visceral feeling about it, is because my dog Nittany was she had been sick, and we were just on the couch, like we had to put her. It was awful, but I just read that whole, like I just sat on the couch and read this book. So I remember being like, this book is a lacuna. Like what's going on here? I can't tell you one thing about that book. So then I was like, all right, whatever. Everybody's allowed to have a book I don't love. I'm thinking after that was Flight Migrations. So again, that came out when which one?
Flight Behavior.
Flight Behavior. That I can see its cover, hardcover. That one came out probably in 2011, 2012, because my daughter was a baby. So like reading time was absolutely precious. Like it was very little. And I remember I got that book, I think for Christmas. I was so excited and I read it and I was disappointed. And I think that might've been it. I think I maybe was like, this is where the moment where and Rebecca and I have talked a little bit about this, I think what happens is writers get too big and then people are afraid to edit them. And so I think Flight
Behavior.
Thank you. That was the first book I think I ever read where I was like, who edited this book? Like where was the editor for this book? And I think maybe I tapped out then. Because I did not come along on the Demon Copperhead ride that you two are going to talk about, I think. And then is there anything else in there?
There was one other that when we were talking about it
found,
earlier,
that's right.
that we were like, oh, I must have already, because that was the only one I didn't have, that I'm like, I must have like just kind of already been like, but
So it was Lacuna, I think, for me I know for me as well. But listen, if Barbara Kingsolver published an opinion piece in the New York Times tomorrow, I would read it. I really do like her writing. I love her essays. I would love to go back to Small Wonder. I still have those, right? The things that I've kept, Small Wonder, Animal, Vegetable, Miracle, like those all meant a lot to me. So it is okay if along your Barbara, we're going to talk about several authors in in this podcast where there's just somebody you love so much and then something has happened that doesn't resonate anymore with you. And that might be it. It might just be me. But it's all of us. So maybe not.
Yeah. And I mean, I think about that too, because when Poisonwood Bible came out, like again, that was when she went mainstream essentially, right?
Yes. Oh yeah.
I remember at that time it felt so different to her other 2 books at the time, because I had not read Bean Trees. I read Bean Trees after Poisonwood Bible. Again, I had come back from New Zealand. I don't know, maybe they didn't have, my bookstore didn't have Bean Trees. I don't know. Anyway, I think, I liked Poisonwood Bible, but I think already at that point, I was like, I still really like the others a little bit more. But I love that people were talking about her, right? That she was getting the recognition through Poisonwood Bible. Like people, like it was like we were having conversations about Barbara Kingsolver and her great work. That's what I was really excited about with
and a woman. I think probably all those years ago it was still kind of extraordinary for a woman writer to get that much attention. I'm remembering now that there was, an extraordinariness to that.
Yeah. And so I think this is what's so interesting about us as readers, is I had the same process, right? So Prodigal Summer, loved that one, just was great. Lacuna, I think, Colleen, we were friends by that point, and we were both just like, what?
Yeah, because I would have had Nittany. You knew me when I had Nittany.
Yeah. Like, and I think this was the start of that space of like the getting like potentially author getting so big and like being able to do what they want in that space, but not really. I don't know. I really don't know what it was about Lacuna, but it was like work to get to
Hmm.
read it, right? Like
I
I
would have
think
never finished it if it weren't
yeah, and
just
I
sitting.
think that was the difference, right? All the other ones, and you mentioned this, Athena, like you just wanted to get in it and just absorb it, right? Like just be part of
Right.
it. And Lacuna was like, oh, right? Like it was just like,
Yep.
I have to get this
Work.
done. And so that was like, for me, it was kind of like, I am committed to Barbara Kingsolver and
I
I'm going to
know.
love this book. And by the
Yep.
end of it, I was like, I just didn't like that. And I will say there are other authors that I love. And like, I think when you were talking, Colleen, about that really, being nervous about going in front of that author, like that was Ruth Ozeki for me. Like I was freaking
Hmm.
out. But then I read like her latest book and I was like, ooh, this was work again. Right. So,
Yeah.
we accept that you get some duds out there, right? Like, or
Yeah.
ones that just don't resonate with you. They're not necessarily duds. I'm sure there's people out there that be like that Lacuna was their first introduction to Kingsolver and just loved it. Right.
Yeah. I
And I
think so.
often
My
think
family members like that. Like my, sorry, go ahead. You finish first.
I
You
was
know
Yeah.
somebody that liked it?
Oh yeah. Well, that's what's interesting
Oh,
for me. So I got Prodigal Summer from my sister-in-law. And my sister-in-law and my niece, who's in her 20s, she's awesome, really well read and wonderful. But they are people that have read all of them and love all of them. They loved that one. They, everyone they've read since. They're just continual fans. And I find that so interesting. I look at her with fascination every time she talks about that loving Lacuna. I'm like, what? I know, so I don't know. Isn't that interesting? She
it
didn't
is.
have that break in her Kingsolver world. I don't know. Isn't that funny?
well, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that are still
Yeah.
like that. And I think
Yep.
I'd be curious to know with those people if they really
Yeah.
started at the Bean Tree level or if they started the Poisonwood Bible level. Because I feel like, from
Yes.
my experience, people I know who still love Kingsolver, and not that I don't love
Yep.
Kingsolver, but I probably will not buy any of her hardcovers for right now for a little
Yep.
while. Maybe a
Yeah.
paperback, maybe from the library, maybe an audiobook. Um, but is that they've started at Poisonwood. Like that's
Yes.
where they first heard about her.
Yeah. I'd have to ask her. I'll ask her, but I think that is where my niece started. So that's funny, you know,
Because
that
there's
she
different
could.
storytelling. It's
Yes.
such like a different that it's such a different storytelling, I think, from that trilogy and then every other book that stands alone.
Yep. Isn't
Yeah,
that interesting?
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm wondering for Rebecca, I'm wondering because I'm thinking about myself as a reader too. I feel like then, like right around that time is when you and I would have been finishing our programs and maybe we just had more confidence in ourselves to be willing to say like, no, I don't like this or I don't think this is for me or good and here's why.
Hmm.
I think there's probably like the self you bring as well because I don't think when I had read the trilogy, the Turtle books, I would have never imagined that I would say to somebody out loud, I don't really like her work.
Yeah.
Um, so I think there's like a confidence in one's self as a reader as well. I'm never
yeah.
gonna, well, I shouldn't say this, you'll yell at me, but like I'm not gonna write a book as good as Barbara Kingsolver. Like, so I'm not dissing on that either. It's just not, I think there's maybe a combination of things there.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like I think she's an incredible writer, but it's just about for me, it's a disconnect with the work at a certain point. I don't know why. You know what I mean? But she's amazing. Like I'll never, so much talent there, but I don't know why. Something shifted in her life or mine where I stopped connecting with I love what you said about the editor. That's so interesting. I
I
never
really
thought
do
about
think
that.
I got through that flight book and I was like, this book needed an editor. And
Mm.
maybe now this person is, either somebody's afraid to edit them or I can't imagine Barbara Kingsolver is a prima donna, but there are other authors probably that are about being edited. But I remember thinking,
Yeah.
that's where I stopped. So you two
Yep.
kept going.
Yeah, and I'm
This is
fascinated
where
that
I get off the highway and you two keep talking.
yeah, I'm fascinated that it was all lacuna for all of us, and I think again, I think some of it could have just been where we all were in our lives at that time,
Wondering,
and it just didn't resonate with
wondering.
us, and that's part of it. But I think so Demon Copperhead, and this is
This is
how,
where I turn off my camera and just like slink.
but I think this is where and this is what you know I don't know if it's struggle with, but like intrigues me about myself is that, oh, new Barbara Kingsolver, let's pre-order. Like I pre-ordered it, right? Even though I had already lacuna, flight behavior, I was like, I still was
Yep.
like, woohoo,
Yep.
and went and bought it, right? Like it arrived when it like on pub day, and I started reading because I was so excited that I got it, and I just struggled from the first like paragraph.
Oh wow.
And yeah, and then I was actually in Pennsylvania. I'd returned to Pennsylvania. Oh, I think I was there for a work trip, and then I came to see my parents, and I had 10 days with my parents. And I was like, oh, I will use this time to listen to Demon Copperhead. I didn't take it with me because it was huge. But I was like, oh, I'll listen to it. And I started it. And the same thing, I was just like, no.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what about it didn't grab you? Or I don't need to read a retelling of David Copperfield,
Yeah.
right? So first of all, I was like, no. But what about, because this is a book we should say
Yeah.
that there is a line drawn. Like some of my friends who are deep readers loved this book, and people who like I really trust and we usually agree. Then there's us. So I'm curious, like what about it in those first paragraphs made you already be like, ugh.
Well, and just to preface this, that I know you're like, I don't need to read another like Dickens-esque book, right? I love
That's just
Victorian.
me. That's just my bag.
I know, but I love Victorian literature, right? Like I
I know
love
you
it. So I was
do.
really excited. Like this is why I was also excited. So it's not that I don't enjoy those stories, right? Because I've read all of Dickens. Um,
I've
we know this.
read them at Christmas.
Though, and not to go off track, but though
Christmas.
we do part on the goldfinch though, which I felt like was a Dickensian thing, and I loved. And Rebecca, you were like, meh. You didn't care about that. You were like, I don't like it.
That should be a sound effect on the
Yeah.
podcast.
I remember where we were. This is friendship, right? On our walk when I was like, Tom, the goldfinch, and you were like, and I'm like, oh, what's happening with our friendship? What's happening? Okay, sorry, continue on.
But that's us. That's me and my one friend for Demon Copperhead. Like she's furious that I won't even read it. Like I'm like, no, because other people told me it's bad. She's like, but I'm saying it's good, and I'm like, I don't care. So Rebecca, you two swayed me more than her.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Rebecca.
I just couldn't connect. Like
Yeah.
and I also was just like, I don't like how I feel while I'm listening to this. Like I don't like I didn't feel good. It didn't, and not that I need to feel good when I'm reading a book, because but at the
You can
same,
sit with a lot of discomfort in a
yeah,
book. That's not what you're saying.
but at the same time, I'm like,
Yeah.
but it's not. This discomfort isn't taking me somewhere, or at least having me grow in some way, or I'm not like, I don't know. I just was like, I don't like anything about any of these people, or what's like it
Yeah.
was. And if you can't invest in the characters in some way, shape, or form, you are never going to get through it.
I know.
Especially a book that long.
Well, that was the other thing. I'm like, I still have like ages ago. And I think this is when we're often, as we've all talked about in our last one, was the willingness to let go and say no, right? So I tried twice with Demon Copperhead and gave it up. And so
How far did you get?
Well, I was listening that, and I listen at a fast speed too.
Oh my God, that's another whole episode where we talk about your psychotic listening speeds. I can tell. Anyway, we need to make a list because we need to talk about the speed at which Rebecca Birdsall listens to her texts.
So
love it.
anyway, I listened to it at least 3 days, if not 4 days, when I was at my parents, and at a fast speed. So I was probably getting along fairly good into the
So
book.
probably 4 hours of that time, so probably 8 hours of actual book.
Yeah.
So you got in, like you were in,
Yeah.
you were
Well,
in.
because
Yeah.
and sometimes I often, go to audiobooks for that sense of like I can still get through the story, but I'll listen and, like it'll while I'm doing something else and feel like I'm not trudging through something and wasting precious time of sitting and reading. Um, and I couldn't even do that. Like I
Yeah.
couldn't even do that.
I
Yeah.
know. Yep.
How about you,
I know.
Athena?
So what
Did
about
you
you? Yeah, Athena, when you
Yeah, I've tried it 3 times, and I have a weird thing with this book where the first time I was like wasn't ready and I didn't really commit. The second time I tried, it didn't go well. I was like, let me try this again. So I have a weird thing with this book though, where like I spent a lot of time on book recommendation sites. Like I'd probably read more if I wasn't always looking for more. You know what I mean? It's
girl,
like
I
it's
can't
yeah.
imagine how you could even read more.
Oh, thank you. I love to read. But I was like, I saw that it just came out in paperback, like just like last week. Or it was like, then I was like, oh, and there's a weird part of me that's like, oh, maybe I'll try it in paperback. Like maybe I'll try it printed on
Maybe
maple
if
leaves.
it's
Like,
lighter, maybe if it's
yeah,
lighter, I'll like
yeah.
it better.
Maybe if I have a yellow cover. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, why is my instinct to keep trying this? I need to let it go. But it's so weird. Like
Hard
for me,
because you love her, because we
I
love
know.
her. That's why it's
I
so
think that
hard.
too. And I think
It's so
it's so interesting to hear you say that, Rebecca, because I've been thinking a lot about this. Like, oh my gosh, we're going to record, and I got to talk about why, and I got to find my why with this one. And it was so interesting when you just said the feeling you got, and I think that's what it was for me too. Like I just felt, and like you said, I've read a lot of stuff that I'm in uncomfortable places, and I'm okay, but I just felt I didn't feel good when I was reading it. Like it's something about it made me feel I don't know. I can't, it's hard to describe, but I just didn't like that world at all. Like I was kept trying to find something to feel
mm,
connected with within it. And I don't know. But I think just
there was
because it
like
keeps,
nothing to hang your hat on. There was like no hooks.
yeah, yeah,
Like you got to give people things to hang their hat on, and there was none of
yeah,
that. Huh?
yeah. I couldn't do it. But like, and I love like Dickens. I love retellings. Like I love James, the Huckleberry Finn retelling.
To read that.
it
I
was so
love that.
good.
Like,
And like
Oh,
oh,
so
you
just
both read it? All right, fine.
so
Ugh.
so
yep,
just
I
so
loved
just to
it.
put the note here because how it's related to Kingsolver. Is
Yeah.
that
Oh, yes,
and
yes, yes. I
I
forgot.
was just looking at my copy of the Chuckanet Reader that just came. So our local bookstore puts out a Chuckanet Reader, which to me it's like the Sears wish list that used to come out at Christmas. So you kind of go through and you circle things that you want. And their like blurb for James was like, if you love Demon Copperhead, you're gonna love this book. And I was like, nope.
Yeah.
And just like moved on. And then Athena was like, I love James. And I
Oh,
was like, let me tell you that what they compared it to.
Yeah.
And I'm
yeah.
concerned. And so she's like, I think you should still try it, which I'm so glad I did. I loved it. But I think
Did you
Oh,
read
good,
or listen
really?
to it?
I
Did you
listened.
listen to it? Yes.
Oh, I'm so glad you liked it. I love how
Wrote it
that
down.
ending.
I think
Oh,
I almost bought it when we were at Pal's when I was with Rebecca, one of the 3 times we went when we were there.
oh, I love
But
it.
all right, I'm gonna get it from the library because
Okay.
it sounds so good. Anyway, I know this isn't about
Yeah.
James. I really do want to read that, and I love
But that
Priscilla.
is, I know. But it is funny though that was the blurb was like, if you liked this, and you're like, no.
That's enough to turn you off, isn't it? Like it's if
Yeah.
somebody if that I have that has happened to me where it's like if you like this, I'm like nope. There
Yep.
are a lot of other books. Why don't you find a book that I do like, and then I will pick that book.
Yes. Yep.
It's
Yeah.
too short to
Mm.
read books that we don't want to read. But now, so well, I think on this same trip that I think that was when I was at the airport to go see you. Um, there was a guy who was like just starting Demon Copperhead. Do you remember that? And so I was like, this guy does not look. I should not judge, but I was like, this doesn't look like this is like a bro. Like bro reading Barbara Kingsolver. I have to talk to him. So I'm like, wow, tell me about. I'm always Matt's like, stop talking to people about books.
I
Um,
do too.
like, hey, like that Barbara Kingsolver, like that's a commitment. And he's like, oh yeah, my sister-in-law got me this for Christmas. And I'm thinking, oh Jesus. Because Oprah, I think, had it on the list or something. And I said to him, wow, she must really know you as a reader. to get you that book. That's all. That was it. That's all I could muster, because I was like, I hope he likes this, but I don't think he knows what he's about to get into. Like, it was on probably, I'm pretty sure there was some Oprah connection that he didn't bring up, but I remembered, and I was like, this guy is this is his only book on the plane, and I hope he likes it.
That's the worst feeling. I hate.
That's the closest I've ever gotten to read it. To reading it was talking to a dude in the airport about it. Honestly, God, though, if another Kingsolver novel came out and there were enough good reviews, I would probably get it from the library and read the first few pages.
I know.
This is how much I love her, right? I'm still willing to forgive, but I'm not going near Demon Copperhead. Even though that, are we going to talk about the elephant in the room? Is that on your list of questions, Rebecca? That was the New York Times. I don't know. You seem to have the New York Times, when the readers did their best 100, and I'm dying to talk about that list. That was the top book as the best book written in, what was it, the 2000s? I don't even remember what
it was the 2000s, I think, because it wasn't just for the year. It was like
when I saw that, and we need to talk. We need to have a conversation, at least 2 podcasts, about what we would put on that list. When I saw that was the top book, I almost threw my phone. I couldn't. I was like, what? And again, this is what this podcast is about. Like, because maybe you feel the same way. Like, Ray went down that shame spiral of like, well, what's wrong with me? Like, what am I not seeing? Why don't I want to read this? Blah, blah, blah. But that really chafed me, man. I was
me
like,
too.
This is the best book from what I'm hearing from people. It is not the best. I was like, what about Cloud Cuckoo Land? And that's just the first thing that rises up. But like all these beautifully inventive books.
I know. I thought something was wrong with me too. I'm like, oh wow, maybe I felt shame.
There's nothing wrong with us. That's why we started this podcast, because this episode is a conversation that Rebecca and I have had several times about Barbara Kingsolver. I think this might be why this podcast exists. She has created, we created the germination of this, because we had this conversation so many times.
Maybe we'll find others.
Yes. That's absolutely.
And put it in the comments. Put it in the comments.
Yeah.
You also respect, again, not dissing Barbara Kingsolver. Please do not hear that. But like, just the work hasn't spoken to you in the past decade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing, right? Like, because even when you said if she has another book come out, like I'll probably get it from the library. I mean, and I could say I'll probably get it from the library, or wait, like who knows? I could pre-order it. Like this is how the sickness is kind of out. It's not a sickness. It's just, again, the love of Barbara Kingsolver, right? Like, in knowing the magic.
God, if she wrote a turtle book, like if she came back to Turtle, I would pre-order that book. Well, like without pause.
Yeah.
Right.
I would pre-order a Turtle 25 years later book. Although I don't remember what happened to Turtle, if that's possible. But I would buy that.
I think her story, I mean, this is where, you can't just discount her storytelling, right? Like, and the way that she pulls you into stories. And it's just that some have not resonated with us. And like, to your point, Colleen, on this one, is that this was one you didn't even read, right? And we were both like, tried it. I mean, 3 times trying to read it. And I tried it twice to just be like, no. But the world out there is saying this is the best.
The best. Yeah. I didn't even, we really shot high for our first episode that's all about one person. But
I know.
It wasn't that you just made the list. It was number 1.
That our fellow readers, right? Our fellow readers around us all decided that, right? That wasn't I don't know where it was on somebody else's list, but the readers picked that.
That's so weird.
It makes you doubt yourself. Always those polls that I'm like, who are they asking?
Who are they?
That was anybody who opted in, which I did not opt in, but I have so much to say about that, but I want to talk about it another time more fully.
Okay. When we go through the whole list.
I want to go through the whole list. I want us to make lists. I want to hear what other people's lists are. I want to hear maybe a list of 10 things that people abandoned.
Oh, fun.
Or the 10
Okay.
books I think didn't belong on that list. Girl, I can do that. In fact, I went through that list, and when people were like, I read this many of this, I
Yeah.
purposely said I read this many, and here's how many of these I abandoned. Like when
Yeah.
people were putting on social media, because I wanted people to
Yep.
know it's okay to abandon a
Yeah.
book
Oh, I
that's
love
supposedly
it.
great.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. I love it. This is fun. What a fun idea.
We're having fun. That's all that
Yeah.
matters.
I
That's
love
all that
this.
matters here.
Oh, sorry.
So
I'm like, this is fun.
So before we move into the next segment of the podcast, any last thoughts on Barbara Kingsolver, or any last things you want to just share with the listeners?
Write another turtle book.
Yeah, right, another turtle
Okay,
book.
let's
I
read
didn't
another
have that
one.
idea until right now that I said it, but
Yeah,
um,
please.
Turtle man.
or write some essays. I want to hear what you're thinking about the world. I've always loved what Barbara Kingsolver. She always helped me make. Maybe that's what you were missing.
Yeah.
This is it for me. Barbara Kingsolver, when she spoke to me, helped me understand the world better. Like she
Yeah.
really did, as a younger person, help me understand the world.
Yep.
It was
You've
so
hit it,
important.
Colleen. That's
Yeah,
it.
Yep.
Like I
isn't
think
That's
that?
that
beautiful.
I think that was what was missing in Lacuna for me. Like I just like it wasn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I
That's
miss. And maybe it's
beautiful.
just that other people do that more for me now or better for me, and because I'm a different person. But that's really what she meant to us when we were like up at
Hmm.
that table getting our
Yeah.
books signed, like just as
Yeah.
growing writers, right? As readers, as humans, as liberals, as all these things.
Yep.
Um, I really just, she helped me and that's probably why we liked Prodigal Summer.
Hmm.
Um,
Mhm.
maybe even more than Poisonwood Bible. Um,
Yeah.
that might be it as well, because that was such a beautiful book about, if I remember right, a woman trying to kind of figure it out and make her way in the world, and she ends
Hmm.
up starting a goat farm, right? I think, for halal
Yeah,
meat.
that was a good.
So there was a lot there in that.
Yeah,
That's me.
I love that book.
I think that's it. I love that we kind of
Yeah.
finally got to the reason, right? And in
Yeah.
that, as we've been saying throughout, it's not necessarily that that's not the same thing that people are getting out of her other newer books. It's just that for us, that's where it stopped, was around Lacuna, right? And that could
Right.
be, it could be related to the content or the storytelling, or it could just be related to where we were in life.
Yep.
Hmm.
So it, we don't know. This is, I think I love that we finally got to the heart of that. So thanks, Colleen, for
Yeah,
voice
that
for
was
that.
beautiful.
I didn't even realize it until just now. But yeah, that I missed that. And I think maybe that's why I have that kind of fate. Like I miss that. Not that I don't get it from many other people, but I do. I
Yeah.
miss that because it was such a touchstone for me whenever she
Yep.
came out with something.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is probably why when I see her name in a new book coming out, I'm just like, yes. Like I
I
just like
know.
no thought, like I just like
Literally, it's
immediately
our
buy.
DNA. Yeah.
Yep,
Our writer
automatic.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
writers.
Mm,
Yep.
mm.
Yeah.
Mm, mm.
So, as part of the podcast, when we have these discussions, we also want to lift up another writer that we've all loved, or their book. And so, I'm going to let Athena kind of start the kickoff of this
Mm.
one, just because she read the
You
advanced reader copy and kind of
start.
was the one that got us all there. So we are talking about Lissa Soep's Other People's Words. So Athena, can you share like what that process was, even finding it, and then how you
Yeah,
kind of shared it out from there?
sure. I like to get advanced readers copies. There's a section in Village Books, our local bookstore too, that you can go and look at ARCs and get books. And I found this one, and it sounded, the premise of it sounded interesting. So I got it, and I just fell in love with it. I thought it was so beautiful, and I'm reading it, and the whole time I'm reading it, I'm like, oh, Rebecca's gonna like it, and
Yeah.
I just loved it. I love it. I think it's beautiful. It's actually one that I want to go back and do again because I didn't do it twice, and I'd like to go back and read it again. But I just thought that was a beautiful book. And recently at the library, and that's not a very particular response. I'm realizing that I'm like not getting into detail right now, but just my general overview of finding it. And then recently, I was telling Rebecca at the library, I took a book off the recommended to check out, and that one was sitting on the shelf, and I pulled it out and put it on the recommended. So I was like, someone else needs to read this, and I told the librarian next to me, I'm like, this one needs to be read, and she was like, well, I think I'm just gonna grab it. Is it good? And I'm like, yes, just
Yeah.
read it. You've got to read this. It's so beautiful. And then is that how you came to it, Rebecca? Just did I tell you and
You
then you got a copy, or
you
what
gave
did
me
we?
the advanced reader copy because I think
Okay.
we had gone out for my birthday or something because you had it in your purse and you were like, you need to read this. Oh no, I was dropping you off
Oh,
and you were like, you need to stay right here. I'm going to run in the house and grab a book that you need to read. Um,
oh,
and so I read the advanced reader copy and I think I even asked if I could write in it because there was so much in there that for me, right, there's many things, but she also deals with time and the way that the
mm-hmm.
spiral of time works together. And so I was like, the
Yep.
spiral of time. And so I like highlighted a few things. And then I had to give, okay, so you probably have my underlined version, right? Because I gave it back to you. And then I actually went out and bought
Yeah.
the hardcover when, like, I pre-ordered it because it wasn't out yet.
Yeah.
Um, and I have talked about it multiple times. And for me, not only the way that she talks about time, but obviously it's talking about grief as well,
Yeah.
which is often
Yeah.
something that I also move into. And this is where talking about like hard stuff, right? You can go in there, but I also love the way that she intertwined theory into it,
Mm-hmm.
like her methodology, and then the way that she just opened up the space for other people's words, right? Like this is
Mm-hmm.
like we got to hear from others in this space. And then just the way that, linking the theory and those moments back together, it was it was just beautiful.
Mm-hmm. I
And so
love
then I
it.
told Colleen about it.
Well,
Oh
it was
yeah.
already popping up on Amazon for me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I had seen the cover, and then I can't remember. I think it was on the end cap of the library, like a new
Mm-hmm.
had just come out. So I can't remember it. I took it out. I was like, oh yeah. I went. I can't remember if it was because Rebecca had told me about it or because it was coming. I had it. It was already on my wish list. So I had read enough about it that it was on my radar. And if you had said to me as a PhD student that I was going to want to read a book about Bakhtin someday,
Mm-hmm.
I would have said, absolutely not. Hard pass. Um, but how beautifully she is exactly what theory is for, right? How
Mm-hmm.
beautifully she uses Bakhtin's concept of language to help her think about and be with these two tragic stories. One of a young man, her friend, who dies in a horrifying accident.
Yeah.
And then the other who seems to me has what I would say is early onset dementia, and the loss of her, and
Mm-hmm.
how she told the stories of those two people was just stunning how those
Yeah.
three things came together, which I think the cover like a Venn diagrammy kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
That over yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. Yep.
So I was very happy to have read that book. That is I mean, Amazon knows me, I guess, well enough because it knew that that's the kind of book that I would really like. I would not say to any reader to be afraid of the theoretical parts. I think she does a really nice job of using the Bakhtin in a way that is accessible, even if I
Yeah.
don't have any memory of what I read as an undergraduate. So, um, and then, and like you said, it opens up space for other people's words. So she brings up enough times. I love books that do this, right? So she brings up enough times this book, Lives Other Than My Own by Emmanuel Carrère, I assume, because he's French.
Mm-hmm.
So I, the way she used this book, I was like, okay, I'm curious about this. And I looked it up, and it was on a New York Times list of
Mm-hmm.
one of the 100 best memoirs in this century. And I was like, well, I've never even heard of this book. That's curious. But what got me is it talks about Sri Lanka, which is
Mm-hmm.
something, an area that I'm really interested in. Um, and um, and so I bought this book and tore through it, tore through it, agree that this is one of the best memoirs I've ever read. So I love books that do that. Like she used this book so beautifully. I'm holding up Lives of Other Than My Own. She used that book so beautifully that I was like, oh, I want to check this out, and then tore through that. It's like an ongoing gift. And I might read more of his work, actually. So then I know here's this where that teaser came in. So then Rebecca, in our weekly call, I was telling her how good this Carrere book was. And what did the universe provide to you, Rebecca?
Yeah, so she's telling me this story about like what the book's based about, because I had it wrong a little, right? I was like, oh, something about the tsunami, but it was wrong.
It is. No,
Anyway,
that's right. Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
it
I
is
know it
about.
was, but I was wrong in the location, and you were like, no,
Oh,
it's Sri Lanka. Anyway, and so I'm reading. I literally like hang up the phone with Colleen, and not that long later, I pick up David Brooks's How to Know a Person, and the chapter that I'm on shares that story. And I was like, what
so
is happening?
she sends me a screenshot, and she's like, "Isn't this the book you were just telling me about?" And I'm like, "That is the book. I was this random memoir."
Wow.
Again, holding up I was like, that is the book I just talked about for 10 minutes on our call and about how good it is. Yes. And
Amazing.
then I wrote back to her. I'm like, what is the universe trying to tell you?
Wow.
So just to know that I honored the universe, I immediately bought the book. Because I was
Yeah.
like, okay, obviously I need to read this. And you know, and what's interesting about that is that I didn't even catch, like, that wasn't what stood out to me in Soep's book. Like, I mean, I know she talked about that memoir in there, obviously, because you resonated with that, but that wasn't, for me, what kind of kept sticking out to me in Soep's book. And I think this is where the beauty of how we get connected to stories as a whole, right? Like, this is what I keep talking about, and this is also what Soep talks about, how like the layering and we become in conversation with other people's words, right? Like we
Hmm.
this is how written word becomes a layer of all our stories. And so
Yeah.
um, I think that's the perfect example of that. You read the book, you felt this other book. We had a conversation about it. I'm reading another book that Athena told me about. Like this, like it's all connected. That, oh
Hmm.
gosh, and now he's talking about that book, so now I'm gonna go buy that book. And so I think, you know, even going back to Kingsolver and all of this, is that this is what it is. This is what it's all about, right? How our stories
Hmm.
get connected, how we connect with stories, and then how they connect us to other stories. And so um, I would highly recommend Other People's Words
Yes.
by Lissa
two,
Soap.
two thumbs up, two
Yeah.
thumbs up.
Yeah.
And honestly, I can't even remember how she used this book. I wouldn't even be able to tell you this memoir, but I remember being so touched by it that I looked in the notes. So couldn't even tell you now what that thing was in that moment, right? The time that got me to be interested enough to look at the notes and then interested enough to order it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's
Yeah. It's amazing.
exactly what her book was about. And I do not love rereading books because I feel like it takes
Yeah.
time away from the other things I want to read. But I do think I would reread this book if I were in a
Yeah.
group or somebody else wanted to talk about it. I would at least go back to it. I mean, and also this is a book that when I see it used somewhere, I'm going to buy. Like I don't own it,
Right.
but it will eventually end up in this trash heap of a library. Because I do want to have it because it was so good.
Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. Yay.
Yeah.
See,
I'm so glad. I'm so.
Athena, see what you started.
I know. I'm so glad you both loved it. That makes
Oh,
me so
isn't that the
happy.
best feeling when somebody like else loves something as much as you loved it?
Yes.
It's scary,
Yes.
like I'm gonna give you this book and I really hope
Oh,
you like it and you don't want to
I
hype it
know.
much, but it's perfect for Rebecca, right? I can totally see
Yeah.
why you did it to Rebecca for sure.
Well, and
Yeah.
so my last
Yeah.
note on
Go
that
ahead.
too is that she
Yeah.
plays with form too, right? In the way that she shares other people's words in that space. And so that's also a thing that I love. And a way to showcase also how our words come to us in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And we share them with each other in different ways. So
I'm so
Beautiful
anyway,
book.
beautiful.
sorry,
Highly,
yeah,
yeah,
What?
highly.
you were gonna say something, Athena.
Me? What was I gonna say? I don't remember. I
You were
loved
gonna
it.
say how awesome you are for
Oh,
finding
no.
putting it in front of all of us. How
Well, it
dangerous it is.
doesn't.
Maybe that's what, like how scary it is to
Yeah,
recommend a book and hope that people are going to like it.
yeah, and
When you're a teacher, you're just like, you have to read this. Not that I
right.
don't the things I read, but it's not like, did you like it or not? So I don't have
Yeah,
to. That's a dangerous game to put it in front of people.
it does remind me of some others too that we can talk about now. That just put something in my head that I'd love to. Okay, future podcasts. Have
Great.
some ideas now. That just
Awesome.
reminded me. It just when you have that moment, you're like, "Ooh, wait a minute, let's talk about this one." But I don't know if I should reveal yet, so I won't.
We will
I
come
wouldn't.
back to that later.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, book podcasters, for joining me today on the conversation about Barbara Kingsolver, our love and our confusion with her, and also sharing out our love for Lissa Soep's Other People's Words. And so more next time.
Can't wait. Always a pleasure.
Yay! I love it.